All right, welcome to another episode of the 41 Jobs Podcast. This is VW Jobs hosting the 41 Jobs Podcast for you. Hopefully you enjoyed the last one. That was about, it's called Too Much of Anything. This one's going to be about Pappy's Gone. It's going to be memories of Grandpa's past, funny and otherwise. Hopefully they're funny to you, but it's usually about friends will be calling in, telling their fondest memories of their grandpas, usually funny stories or crazy stories of why would they do that or why'd they do that. But grandpas are funny. They do stuff around you that dads wouldn't do, and that's why it's funny. So Pappy's Gone, 41 Jobs Podcast.
Midnight, not a sound from the pavement. As the moon lost her memory, she is smiling alone. In the lamplight, the withered leaves collect at my feet, and the wind begins to moan.
Hey, that was my wonderful daughter, Chloe's rendition of Memories, so I thought that'd be cool. I mean, that wasn't real funny, but she's such a good singer, I thought I'd let her start out with that. So, memories of Grandpa's past. My grandpa, the one that I was around more than the other. One grandpa I lost when I was like 7 years old, and he died of cancer. My mom's dad. But my other dad, other grandpa, I spent a lot of time with. My dad's dad. So I would see, my mom and dad were divorced, so I'd see my dad like every 2 weeks, okay? And I spent a lot of time with my grandpa in Elwood, Indiana. And my grandpa owned a bar. He worked at a GM factory, and he also ran a fruit market and kind of like a vegetable stand. So, you know, and they were from Arkansas, my grandma and grandpa, and they had a kind of a crazy accent that, I mean, if you didn't know too many people from Arkansas, you'd have trouble understanding what they were saying half the time. But my grandpa was a really smart guy, really interesting guy, and he was, you know, probably my favorite grandpa of the two grandpas I had, and he was so much fun to be around. He kind of liked beer. He was kind of an alcoholic, but he was a fun guy. Just for example, I'd go see my grandpa, and, you know, he started this fruit market, and, you know, he had to get this fresh produce in his truck from Indianapolis. And Elwood's about, 45, 50 minutes to an hour away from Indianapolis. We'd have to go real early in the morning. And I didn't always go, but I was like, you know, yeah, I want to be with my grandpa. You know, and I know he drank a lot. He had a drinking problem, but I loved the guy to death. So I loved going down with him. He'd tell me great stories about growing up in Arkansas and doing all the stuff he did when he was a kid and all that good stuff. And we'd go down to Indy. Everything was all good. And then, you know, we got our vegetables. I was real proud to be with my grandpa loading up the vegetable truck and loading up the fruit and stuff and all that stuff. And then next thing you know, we're driving back to Elwood. We stop at bars on the way up. I'm talking 6 and 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. Who thinks of going to a bar and drinking at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning? My grandpa did. He was about a case a day, beer drinker. And, you know, you're little. You don't think about it. Oh, grandpa's doing something that grandpas do. Well, he'd pull up at a bar. My dad's going to kill me telling this story. Maybe I told him before. But grandpa would stop at bars, get, you know, maybe 6-pack in him. And then I'd be in the car by myself for I don't know how long. You know, when you're a kid, 15 minutes feels like 2 hours. I have no idea how long I was in the car. I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I don't remember. But he'd drink and get a little bit buzzed up. Then we'd drive to Elwood, and he would drive. You know, I'm not saying he was driving drunk. Maybe he always drove this way. But he would drive and just slam on the brakes and almost hit every bumper back up to Elwood. And, you know, you're scared to death as a kid. And now I look back and laugh. But it's just, I mean, I don't know how we ever made it, you know. He was drunk driving me probably a lot, and I didn't even realize it. But it was funny because, I don't know, even though I know it probably wasn't good, and sometimes I turned him down because I was worried about it, I just loved being with him. He was a great guy. told great stories, and just, you know, you didn't even care about the risk. Like, you know, and the other stuff that I did. I love my grandpa to death. You know, then my grandpa, and I don't know, we spent so much time in there in the summer and the spring, me and my sister. And he would have people pull up on Sundays, okay? Sunday afternoons. He owned a bar across the street called the Silver Dollar Tavern in Elwood, Indiana. Might lose some listeners right there with that one, but that's another story. But he would have these people knock on the door on Sundays. You know, a bunch of people, okay? And I'm like thinking, what's going on? Grandpa goes, he used to call me Sambo. He goes, Sambo, won't you go out the garage and get Pepper a couple cases of Budweiser? So, okay, first time I'm thinking, what is he talking about? So I'll do anything for my grandpa. So I go out the garage, go to these refrigerators that are sitting in my grandpa's garage, go get a couple cases of Budweiser, and go deliver it to this guy and help him put it in his truck. And this is on a Sunday. It's Indiana. You can't do that. That's called bootlegging. That's illegal. He had me for several weeks when I'd visit. I was the carryout kid on Sundays, and it probably covered him. I wasn't getting hurt. I wasn't in trouble, but I carried out beer bootlegging for my grandpa for a little while. He got in trouble for it. He quit doing it. And just Elwood was an interesting place. It's north central Indiana. If you're not from around here, just listen to this podcast. It's kind of an interesting place. So something else that Grandpa would do, which I thought was kind of funny. Well, one Christmas, I got all these nice, cool things like bikes and stuff. And, you know, my grandpa was legitimately buying off of somebody. This guy that was selling these bikes to my grandpa for, you know, the neighbor kids or me or whatever. I mean, they were hot, and hot bikes are basically stolen bikes. My grandpa would buy stolen bikes of these guys because they were cheap, brand new 10-speeds, or at least pretty darn new. And I get these new bikes, and they were stolen, and it was like, but, you know, the stories my grandpa would tell me about bar fights and this and that, and, you know, it was just awesome memories. You know, he'd show me magic tricks and really be too drunk to be doing it, and showing me he showed me this magic trick where he had his cigarette that would disappear in his hand. And, I mean, it took me a few years to figure out that he had this prop on his thumb that looked just like his thumb. And he'd smash out the cigarette with his thumb inside his hand. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I thought that was so neat. And, you know, just cool stuff like that I remember. And helping him build. He was probably my first person to teach me how to do construction. And I helped him build a garage or an addition onto their home. And, you know, just great memories. You know, and when your grandparents go, he had a stroke and probably had a lot of complications with smoking and drinking, and just he went downhill quick. But, I mean, it was nice to spend a lot of time with that guy, and, you know, it was just great. It was great memories of my grandpa. All right, I got a buddy of mine that I work with is going to be calling in and talking about his memories. Now, I don't know if they're funny or cruel, but they're certainly not very serious. I guess depending on what you think serious is, but pretty scary stuff, but funny stuff. Hey, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Hey, you got a couple good stories about your grandpa?
Oh, yeah.
Good. I can't wait to hear them.
Well, there's one. It was a sunny, I don't even know what day it was, but it was nice out. Good day. Grandpa picks us up. Spent a lot of time with him parents both worked, so he'd pick us up from school. And one day he picked us up from school, and we were heading to Marion. We owned a little apartment complex over there on Adams Street. We get, I was probably 8 or 9. We get into Marion, and he has this little Ford Ranger truck, and it's my brother and I, we could barely fit in the seat. That's how small it was. So it was just the three of us. We're driving, and we pull off onto the side road to the apartments, and he said, "I'll be right back." He leans over, gets in the glove box, pulls out his 45, and just like it was a normal day, and he takes off towards the front of the building. About 5 minutes later, my brother and I were just sitting in a truck, sweating to death, and out comes the back of this apartment. He goes in the front, out comes the back, like 4 or 5 black people, and he's yelling, screaming at him, and he's got his gun. So my brother and I, we were scared to death.
Oh.
So we're just sitting there, just quiet, and he comes back to the truck, leans over, opens the glove box, puts his gun back in there, and just takes us and gets us like a half meal or something at McDonald's, like nothing even happened. So that was one of the many times I've spent with my grandpa. I mean, there's a lot of other crazy times. One time, we're on our way to Disney. This was before he tried to shoot those people in the apartment complex. We are on our way for a family vacation and driving to Disney, and we stopped at this hotel, and we were begging him that we stopped at this. It had a vibrating bed, or it was an old motel or hotel, whatever you want to call it, kind of like a hole in the wall. He was a trucker, so he knew the route where we were going, where we were staying. And we begged and begged for him to put money in this machine so we could sit on this vibrating bed. He said, if I put a quarter in that, you're staying on it. You're not getting off. He's like, oh, cool, you know. And I think it was like a 10-minute time limit that you'd get for a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first 3 minutes in that thing was vibrating, and I just got sick. Went to the toilet and puked, came back out, and he's like, you need to get back on that bed. I put the quarter in. You said you're going to stay on it the whole time. And I think that's probably child abuse or something.
Well, now he'd be sent up, but back then it probably was normal.
Yeah, he's like, I put a quarter in there. You're going to sit on it. So my brother, I had my cousin Jen. We sat on this vibrating bed, and it was the worst time of my life. But yeah,
oh man,
we've had some good times. He rest his soul.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I got my sister on, and I talked about Grandpa, and I was talking about, I want to tell my sister that I was talking about Grandpa going down to Indy and taking me down the fruit market and, stopping at bars, and God knows how long I was sitting in that truck. And he would drink, and then he'd drive home. I don't know if it's because of his age or he was too drunk, but he almost hit every bumper all the way back to Elwood. So my sister probably can tell a story 10 times better than me. She's on here talking about that same Grandpa from Elwood. Sky, what's one of the good memories you remember about Grandpa?
Well, I was probably about 7 or 8, and I don't know. I was a big shit. I looked out the window, and I saw Grandpa sleeping in the car. And I said, Grandma, why does Grandpa sleep in the car? And she was real mad. She said, well, he decided to go out and get drunk last night, and you kids were here, so I made him sleep in the car. And I said, well, I bet he's cold or something. I need to go give him a pillow. She said, you can if you want to. So I went out there, took him a pillow and a blanket, and I was trying to move his head to put the pillow underneath his head, and he was like dead weight. He wouldn't move. So I slapped him as hard as I could in the face. So he woke up.
Well, and
Grandma was looking out the kitchen window because she was cooking breakfast, and she was laughing. And then, of course, she got on the phone, called everybody in Arkansas, told them the story, told Maurice the story, and everybody.
Well, that's not the only violence I accuse you of. I remember I had a good friend from school come in your house and named Justin Cole. Now he's a sheriff. He comes in walking into your house, and you punched him right across the face. That was his introduction to you.
I don't know why, but I love to punch people in the face. I love it. There was this other guy I just met.